Welcome to Teaching Artistry with Courtney J. Body. That's me. This is a podcast that celebrates artists and advocates for community engagement. And like you, I'm home, have been for many weeks, and we're looking to connect. And so the podcast has started this cool video cast. See how cool it is? I am partnering with Creative Generation in talking to artists or creatives who are making and sharing art and or finding ways to guide others to make and share art. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're also on social media, and we have lots and lots of content and lots of things happening on Facebook, Twitter, as well as Instagram. All right, enough of that. Let's get to our guest. This person is somebody I would consider a family, a relative, a cuz, if you will. His name is James Miles. What's up, James?
What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up, family? How you doing, Courtney?
Oh, I miss you.
I miss you.
So James used to live across around the corner from me.
I know.
When did you move? When did you move? When did you leave me?
I left you Inauguration Day 2017. Can you believe that?
That hurt a lot. Wow.
I know. That hurt for many reasons. Rip it off like one clean Band-Aid.
So how are you and my sweet girls and Maggie? How are your family? How are you doing? How are your parents?
Oh, they're good. So my family's doing well. It alternates between my children wanting to kill each other and love each other.
Mm-hmm.
The same can probably be said for my wife and I. But for the most part, we're doing very well. We're lucky to have a backyard, so we play badminton. I'm gonna set up a ping pong table in the back, homemade ping pong table.
Nice.
Yeah, but for the most part, we're doing pretty well. Thank you. And my parents in Chicago, not going to the casino, thankfully. They're still kicking it at home and staying safe.
Good. I love them. Tell everybody, what kind of artist are you and what role do you have in this field?
Great question. So my artistry, I started as an actor, improviser, and general around funny man. I think my artistry as an educator is hip hop education. And my role now is currently the executive director of an organization in Seattle called Arts Core.
Yeah. Excellent. And so I want you to talk about yourself first. Let's focus on you as an artist and or an advocate in the field.
Me as an artist, as I said, I was an actor. So this Courtney, I've been acting for a long, long time. Around 2013, when I was teaching at NYU, and also working on a show, a couple of different TV shows and movies, I decided to leave acting and go full on to teaching. This kind of launched my hip hop education world. I use hip hop pedagogy mixed with process drama, integrated into academic curricula to inform, engage, entertain, and assess student understanding of academic content. I started doing this I was influenced by Boogie Down Productions in 1987, along with NWA, Straight Outta Compton. So Boogie Down Productions has an album called Edutainment, mixture of education and entertainment. Boogie Down and it's NWA, of course, Straight Outta Compton, unsolicited, unfettered expression. And I was like, I want to do whatever that is. So that's what I do now, whatever that is. Unfettered expression using education and entertainment combined into one.
And you talk a lot about hip hop education and hip hop as education.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, hip hop is the global. It's a global sound. It's a global culture. No matter where you go in the world, if you put your hands in there and say, when I say hip, you say hop, everyone's gonna do it. When I say hey, you say yo, hey, yo. Like it's around the world we're engaging in it. Young people digest it regularly, whether they're my children or someone else's children. everyone knows hip hop. They may not love it, but they know it. I liken it to the song, Fireworks by Katy Perry. You may not love that song, but you know it. And the same can be said for many different genres of popular music. So hip hop's the method I use. If I said that eloquently, yeah.
You did say that, and you know where else you were eloquent?
Where was that?
On your TED Talk.
Oh yeah, I did a TED Talk, y'all.
What? Let's scroll on down to that jazz.
Yeah. Oh look, unshaved. I mean shaved.
Yeah. Look at. There's a very stark difference between.
Yes. I look like I belong on Game of Thrones right now. I know that.
You look good. You're wearing it well.
Thank you.
Question. I've only seen TED Talks this way, and then I went to a TED Talk, TEDx Broadway.
Yeah.
And there, you have to be memorized. And this is a long talk.
Yeah.
What do you got to do for this to get ready for something like this?
The number of rehearsals is staggering. I felt like I was back in the theater, having to rewrite, rehearse. I think the first draft I submitted was in July. And I had to memorize that back then. And then we didn't tape this until November of that same year. So I worked on this one 15-minute piece for about 5 months.
Wow. It is a play. That is exactly what that is.
Yes. I was like, oh, wow, again? And because I wrote it, I was like, wait, did I write this part? Wait, which part did I cut out? But it was fun. My coach, Jacqueline Farrington, was lovely. As was Tracy O'Dowd. I had 2 different coaches. They were amazing.
That's awesome. So they give you a lot of support.
They a lot of support, and they're all in it to really boost your TED Talk and really make it feel like you are loved and the audience loves you.
Why don't we watch a bit?
Yeah, let's watch a bit.
I know that when I saw this, I think I saw it on social media, and I was like, what? I can't. Okay, so we're gonna click full screen,
click on it.
And let's go. Let me put it up full
blast.
You know what? I need to check something. Hold on 1 second, y'all.
Sure.
This is called live. We're taping live. I need to make sure that I hit the share the audio because I have been known to not do that before. So.
I get it. Yeah, there you go.
You get it. Where's the share button, the play button? What's happening?
Oh, there's. I think you're sharing. There you go.
Here we go. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna take my horse on the Old Town Road. I'm gonna ride till I can't. Yes. Okay. You ever get a song stuck in your head just like that one that you just can't get out? Like no matter how hard you try, it's just there. What if school was the same way?
Boom. Mic dropped.
The content was sticky like a popular song. Now the song I just brilliantly sang is by Grammy nominee Lil Nas X, featuring Billy Ray Cyrus. Yep. And it broke Billboard records by spending the most time at the top, with 19 weeks at the top spot. It's not part of the cultural milieu of youth that basically anyone under the age of, 60 knows that song. So what if you could connect that song to what young people are learning so that school is both fun and educational? I mean, that would be dope! When I first stepped into a classroom 22 years ago, I saw that the curriculum I had to teach wasn't connecting with the youth I was serving. And I've taught all around the country, but I saw something very distinct. School attendance was abysmal, as was class participation. Students would spend most of the time looking at the floor, looking at the wall, the window, the back of their eyelids. Oh man, school ain't for me. Yo, why we gotta learn this? Half them people dead. They would stay disengaged, and I spend the next lesson teaching that same lesson over and over and over again. But when I connected what they knew and loved, like Old Town Road, to the academic content, I saw students lift their heads off their desks, open their eyes, try to fight back a smile, but then raise their hands because school just got interesting.
Man, I'm dope, Courtney.
If a child cannot learn in the way we teach, we must teach in the way a child can learn.
Boom.
Right on.
Oh, I'm so happy. I'm gonna keep keep playing it, but can you talk a little bit more about what the crux of this is about? Like we can link to this when we post this so people can watch it in full, but you know, what's your ultimate point here? I mean, obviously that was a good thesis.
Thank you. Yeah, the point was really that we should be listening to what students are interested in. They're not empty vessels. They come to class with their own breadth of knowledge that's often ignored or even criticized for bringing into the classroom. And if you're able to connect with those young people on the level in which they want to engage in, you'll find the academic gains that much stronger, that much more. You know, they say that if a student loves their teacher, especially a very young student loves their teacher, they will do better in class. So how do you show love? You share similarities. Like, you know, if I like pizza and you like pizza, then, let's have a conversation about pizza. And that conversation could go different ways. How many ways can you cut a pizza pie? 8, 16, 4. Guess what? That's all mathematics. That's all geometry. That's all math. And we're talking about pizza. That's what I'm saying. Bring in what young people are interested in and use that to teach them.
So yeah, I would recommend if you haven't watched. No, sorry, I'm already at the next question. But if you haven't had a chance to see this, I recommend it because there are like really, really good points in there. And
Thank you.
I guess that's where my brain was going was just now was the fact that you know, you work for an arts corps. What's the mission of Arts Corps?
The mission of Arts Corps is to revolutionize arts education by igniting the creative power of youth through culturally engaging learning experiences. So basically, hip-hop education. Not every class uses hip-hop music, but every class is culturally responsive, meaning that we use the interests of the young people that we serve.
Beautiful. Now, I have a question for you.
And I have an answer for you.
I know you do. I do. My question is, you know, you and I are in the same field. We're both artists, but we're also both advocates for arts education and the fact that young people should have it in their lives in a myriad of ways. And how has your organization been able to respond to the moment at hand?
You know, we saw that coronavirus moving this way very quickly and saw what it was doing to Korea and China. So thanks to our education director, Hilaya DeBarros, now the ED of ATA, we came up with a plan pretty swiftly, who's our director of education. We came up with a plan pretty swiftly to pivot and move our programming offline, or I should say online, out of the school building and online. And part of that was, one, acknowledging the teaching artists that are teaching. So every teaching artist that worked with us, once school was dismissed for the rest of, it was for like 2 weeks, we said, we'll pay all the teaching artists their prep rate. So it's not the entire teaching rate, but we did say we paid the prep rate without any funding to back it up. Then we started asking funders, like, hey, can you please pay us? We are still paying our teaching artists. So many funders were like, yes, wow, that's amazing. And then we started creating more content. So we pivoted, made online videos. We're starting to do live streams like during lunchtime and after school hours to engage families. We've created lessons and lesson plan kits for families to use that are really simple to access virtually online. And also at certain sites around Seattle, mostly Highline, which is south of Seattle, South King County, we're dropping off physical art kits that have been disinfected and are clean at the sites where school lunches are dropped off, just because not everyone has access to tech and access to Wi-Fi. So how do you engage those populations that don't have that? Well, you bring it to them. And since those families typically also get their lunch picked up from that site, we said, great, here's a great place to deliver and disseminate that information.
I'm very curious about that because, we are now in New York in a similar place where kids are learning from home. Teachers are doing their best to be able to create learning opportunities for their students through the digital platforms that they're able to use. But you know, we have lots of inequities in this city, and there's still kids. There are teachers who still haven't been able to actually even reach the kids to know because they haven't seen them on those different platforms. And there's a lot of challenges because you can't travel. You can't. So I'm just curious, how are you dealing with? So you're going to the sites, like how I'm trying to understand the scale,
Yeah.
I guess, because
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, right.
we work with you know, almost 200 schools. We don't have that capability to drop things off necessarily. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, that was coordinated in part with our representatives in the school district. They
Mm,
helped us do that. So we're not serving all the schools. You know, I don't know what it is back in New York, but of the multiple school buildings, I
mhm.
think there's 13 sites in South King County where the lunches are dropped off. And those are the sites we've targeted, and not all 13, just the ones we have partnerships with.
Right.
And that's done by a single teaching artist in their car. You know, we are different that way, that we can travel to places solo, self-quarantined, and then deliver those art kits outside in plastic disposable bags along with the food being dropped off. Not at the same time, just in the same place.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I think that here it's like over 400 sites where people can pick up food,
Oh,
and
wow.
so yeah, so it's a slightly different scale, and we don't, you know, we're not necessarily a driving city, even though a lot
No.
of people actually have cars here, but we're not in that state. But you're giving me food for thought, so now I have some stuff to think about about how can we tackle that issue. I was thinking the opposite of like, how could we get not the opposite, but a route was,
Mm-hmm.
could we find a partner who could provide Wi-Fi or provide the devices that have Wi-Fi in them already, so they're not
Mm-hmm.
relying on a family home to have Wi-Fi to be able to
Right.
access, and then you know, but we would need the information from the schools in order to get to that granular level.
Right.
So you know, we've got some things to think through in this world, because we
Yeah.
have been able to pivot to sorry, pivot
Pivot.
to pivot to you know, remote learning, but not school-based yet. So our school-based
Yeah.
content will roll out in further weeks, because and there's a lot of it, and it's very, very exciting. But it's just taken us more time to be able to pivot to that in a quicker fashion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
So
it's
you
partly
want me to
because,
show, like, so you've
yeah,
done some
please show it.
video
Yeah.
work, right? So
Yeah, we have.
talk more about your artists. How do you work with your artists?
We have a very strong team of teaching artists that work with ArtsCore, the best in the region, if not the country. And you know, I'm speaking up, you know, in addition to myself. They work pretty hard. So this video here is Miss Karina, one of our veteran teaching artists, teaching us how to make a visual art design inspired by a print by Ellie Mae Abrams from Gee's Bend, Alabama. So he's using different shapes, mathematical, geometric shapes, to create a collage of sorts with homemade materials. So really just in glue, scissors, a piece of paper, pencil, and a ruler, and then anything you else can find that can be attached to this piece of paper. So that's magazine strips, newspaper strips, pieces of cloth, and really giving bite-sized ways for young people to engage, create art, and just like our hashtag is make art anyway. So
Yeah.
despite whatever, we're gonna make art anyway, and here's the tools how to do it. So as you see, it's pretty well designed, cinematographically. That's the right word.
Cinema, Cinemagraphically, yeah.
Our cinematography is on point. How
Oh
about that?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Cinematography is on point, and we're doing some fun stuff. And each video is, you know, between 7 to 10 minutes. And here's the
That's
Ellie Mae
cool.
Abrams piece
Mhm.
from Gee's Bend, and Miss Karina is teaching us how to do it. And we've gotten such great response, not just from Seattle or South King County, which is where Seattle is, but across the state. People said, "Hey, I'm using your resources. Thank you." So that's been wonderful to see and hear from families that we hadn't previously connected with.
That's really, yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's been been the most interesting, is that when you're a venue based organization, or you have venue based programming, whether your venues are schools or it's a
Mhm.
theater or it's a museum, that uh, so much of our focus goes into how do we communicate, how do we create more access, how do we be more
Yeah.
inclusive, make them feel like they belong, all of those pieces in terms of culturally responsive pedagogy and practices. And yet when you go to starting to, put things online, the access just
It's
is
endless.
fast, right? It's
It's
almost
vast. Yeah.
it's massive. Yeah, exactly. So what are some of the responses that you've heard?
Most of them have been thank you. A lot of them have been fun ways, thank you for allowing us to, or finding a way to engage my students. We are working primarily with Highline School District, which is on the southern border of Seattle Public Schools. And since Seattle Public Schools is in Seattle, the highest GDP in the country, third highest in the world,
Mm,
it was pretty easy for Seattle to have the necessary tech and resources. Not saying it's equitable, but they have a lot more resources to draw from.
mm,
Meanwhile, their neighbors to the south and Highline School District have very little. So we kind of targeted them. We definitely targeted that population of students and families, and just like listened to what they wanted. So what do you want? And students love visual art. Students, and this is really dedicated for early learners, elementary and up to maybe middle school, uh, and just they're just happy. They're bored at home. They want to express themselves. That's why we have the arts. The arts is a great way to process the way you're feeling. It's a trauma informed practice where you're learning, like, how do I put my feelings into, I can't put them into words, or I can't put them into my math problem, but I can put them into something creative, whether that's writing a poem, whether that's creating a piece of visual art, whether that's acting something out, whether that's a song. We're providing resources for them to do that. And that's the responses have been overwhelmingly like, wow, this is amazing. Keep doing it. Is there anything else you can give to us, send to us?
yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
need more. It's hard to catch up with the need, with
Of course.
the demand, because we're at capacity. We had to pivot, as you said, really quickly.
There's so many questions that I could ask, but I don't want to ask too many. But I think that this is the big query, is how do we, the need is great. This particular health crisis we always knew that there were inequities. I talked to Michael Wiggins, as you know, a lot, and he's always like, it's not working. We don't really want to help people on a good day. And now we're in
Yeah.
this, and you are seeing people wanting to help, but the vast inequities are massive, and it's
Yeah.
very, very clear in a moment like this, and it's very hard to ignore. But
Mm-hmm.
one needs to, recognize what they're capable of doing and what can they do. And so what you just said, like, kids need the art, they need something to be able to express themselves with. We are now in this huge debt or shortfall moment where people are figuring out their budgets, because this is budget time when you start passing your budgets for the next fiscal year, but we're already lost
Right.
revenue from this fiscal year. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of, and we're not actually out of this, right? The curve isn't completely, it's not declined all the way. We're just starting to see a little bit of a plateau. That's it.
Maybe.
So question, because it's like almost like you're ahead of us in time and yet
We're in the
behind in the
future.
zone, right? But I'm just curious, like, let's just talk about that for a second, about how important the arts are, how important, or how what's the right word? What am I trying? How beautifully woven the arts are in trauma-informed practices, culturally responsive practices, which is what we need to do. And
Mm-hmm.
yet we know for a fact that when there is budget cuts, what is the first thing that they cut?
It's the arts, always.
right? So, but why is that? If this is actually, we are in this moment and the arts are the thing that is helping everybody get through, why is that the thing that goes away when they're like, well, we need to cut something?
I think it's because you can't measure a job related to the arts directly. You know, you can see like, oh, you're an actor. Oh, you're a singer. Those are few and far between. They're all celebrities. But you don't see how what you learn in kindergarten, studying like shapes and coloring in the lines, translates to when giving a speech and categorizing your speech, or in a boardroom talking about different elements and painting visually and theoretically a picture for the rest of the employees and board of directors to see. There's not that direct correlation.
But that I think that maybe that's where research comes into play. Like,
yeah, right.
You know, because when you were talking, when we were looking at Miss Karina,
yeah.
You know, in the shapes, I'm seeing architecture, I'm seeing engineers, I'm seeing construction, right? I'm seeing plumbers even, you know, like you have to understand, I'm seeing coders
yeah.
in that. Like, I don't know why, like, I feel like I'm kind of going a little crazy because that's, so, okay. So I in my past guests, I've been asking this question differently, like, because you and I are in education, I'm going in there, and I think you're kind of the first guest that I've really dove into this part of the field. But my question has been, and I don't know if I want to pose it exactly to you this way, but my question has been about how important artists are who are unemployed or, you know, having low employment at the moment. How can we be engaging them to be activating and mobilizing in this moment, especially now that we are in budget, so that we can say, no, you can't make those decisions. Those are the wrong decisions. So that's on a budgetary or financial level, but also this idea of like how much trauma, like how many kids in our education systems will have lost family members who, or are the only person who can make a job, or are working in a place where they are actually an essential worker. So not only are they the breadwinner, the only person who can work right now, but then they're coming home to having been exposed, and then they're coming home to somebody or many family members who either could be exposed because they are, and there's no place to actually quarantine, and or somebody in their home is sick and they don't have the best access to healthcare. Like, and then on top of that, they don't have enough money for food. You know, like, how do we say, you know what, we know that your life sucks right now and everything's been stripped away, but we're also going to take away the one thing that can give you hope, the one thing that can help you express how you feel while you're experiencing this pain and this stress and this anxiety. Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Why are the arts important when people don't have food on their table, right? Yeah, I mean, it's the first form of communication and expression. So if you're going to capture the zeitgeist of the moment, you're not going to do it in a bar graph. You're going to have to do it creatively, right? I mean, the reason we know about history and our ancestors is because of the artistic remnants of the past, right? That's how we know what happened in ancient Egypt. Not because someone's telling that story. It's because we're looking at the hieroglyphics written on the wall. The reason we know about the Renaissance, and actually the reason we know about the Dark Ages, is because of the Renaissance. The Renaissance was a rebirth, literally, of art and creativity and humanism. And that happened out of this Dark Ages where people, were suffering from plague, had no creativity outlet, loss of food. That's why it was called the Dark Ages, because there was no art being made. So when you have this Renaissance, this rebirth of art, you'll see a flourishing of humanity and our citizenry. I mean, if you think on the converse, on the inverse, the first thing dictators do when they take hold of a region is take away the art. So if we want to take away the art of our society, we're allowing dictators to run up and say, you know what, this is the way I see the world. We're going to open up the government. We're going to open up stores. We're going to say libertarian, that's the way to be. We're going to say, every human for themselves, and there's going to be an uprising. and there's going to be murder and mayhem on the streets without the arts, because the arts provide us a platform to express ourselves, to say, wait, I'm feeling many ways about this. What do I do? You know, they're great. You know, let's look at the WHO. You know, our president took away funding for the WHO, and the WHO did do some things that kind of been seen as contrarian in terms of mishandling information coming out of China. That doesn't mean that funding should be cut off because of one negative aspect of what they've been doing, but putting that into some creative way allows me to say, like, well, they did do something that's negligent, but also they're helping more people. How do I process this? That's why we have arts, to be able to process our emotions and to capture the life and the history that we're living in. Art is not a mirror to life. Art is life. And that's what we need to do. That's what I'm thinking.
I love that. I'm a little emotional right now. I'm realizing that you were my very first guest on my podcast.
I know. Isn't that wild?
And and in that podcast, if you go back to it, one of the last questions I asked then, and that was 4 years ago, I asked, what would the world be like without art? I'm just remembering that now and realizing, oh shit, this is where we are.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I could talk to you forever. But we gotta wrap up.
Okay, bye.
But let's keep talking. And I love what's your Arts Core motto? Make art anyway. All right. James, thank you so much for being such an amazing artist. Yes. Thank you. Being such a huge advocate and being my friend and a guest on this show. And for all of you watching, we do also have a podcast. So remember to subscribe to the podcast as well. There are lots of other guests that we're talking to there, but we're also recording these conversations in that platform. So subscribe on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Make art anyway. And keep making art. Making art. Boom. I love you, Courtney. Thank you. I love you.